uh, Nick Marcion and his staff. We were dealing with child welfare this evening. We had a whole team of people involved, and we had a number of calls and questions that were answered, discussion in terms of where that department is, and it's phenomenal the changes that we can see over the past 25 or 30 years, right down to the reduced number of kids that are now at Polinsky. We're remembering when they had kids in the gym and all over the place. Now they got 20 among blacks in San Diego, and homelessness among black San Diegans, a study that was done by an ad hoc committee of the Regional Task Force on Homelessness. Last week we had a piece on listening to Californians. We talked about another study that's come out that dealt with health care and where we are, what health care we have, and how we are functioning and either being helped or victimized in terms of health care disparities. So there's a lot on the plate, and those things are going to be they're posted. You can go to our website and you can pull up the stories, and you can download our app so that you can really pull the stuff up in real time, and you'll be able to see what we're talking about. And so tonight we want to really zero in on Dr. Thompson. We want to zero in on voting, not only just taking place here, but we want to talk about the implications of some of the things that are happening nationally in terms of it.
Well, I'm excited, and every time I get uh, together, I get very excited, and mainly because you have one of the best voter guides that comes out on the paper, and it makes it real easy for us to literally go to the Voice and Viewpoint and know that it's been talked about, it's been researched, and there's foundation behind recommendations or just endorsements. And so tonight, I would like to just jump right on in it. We have the guide up.
Yeah.
If those of you all that don't have it, just go to the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint webpage, and you can see it in the latest edition of the digital copy of the newspaper. Or if you like it like I do, I like to go ahead and get a copy
Physical
so I
copy.
could take it with me when I go vote.
Right. Well, let me just say that, and I was sharing this with Black Men and Women United yesterday as we met, that last week, this week, and the next 3 weeks leading up to the election, we are going to be publishing 2 pages. One page is the actual listing of voting sites of concern to us by zip code in terms of where they are within the different communities. And then the second page is a listing of our recommendations and endorsements for the general election, including the propositions that are on the ballot, because a lot of people are being confused about the propositions. And so I want to just start. If you look at if you pull it up, the first line you see will be an endorsement for the United States Senate, and we have Alex Padilla listed twice, and that probably confuses some people. And what's happening with that is, on the one hand, he is being voted in to finish out the term of Vice President Harris, and then after that, he is being voted in for a full term. So his full term vote is the first item that appears, and then the partial unexpired term is the second, and that's why he appears on the ballot twice. Governor Newsom is on the ballot, and we're expecting him to be reelected. And then for our lieutenant governor, we don't talk a lot about her, but we have Ilani Kunalaski, who is a Democrat, and she's the lieutenant governor, one of 2 women in that cabinet. And of course, our well-known and favorite person, Dr. Shirley Weber, who is Secretary of State currently, and she is running for this full term. And I believe she's the 33rd or the 34th Secretary of State for the state of California, and the first African American. And she's gone to that job with an impressive record from the state assembly, an impressive record from San Diego County as a school board member and educator. She retired from San Diego State, where she was responsible for creation of Africana studies, and so that's a Democratic slate there. But those are people that we want in office, And we want them in office not because they have nice smiles, but because we want to continue the work that's being done. Dr. Weber is responsible in large part for the opportunity for ex felons to be able to vote. And she's just got a whole number of things that have been signed into law during her term in the legislature, and now she's doing an outstanding job as the Secretary of State. You want to move on up. Next, we have another group of people running for state office and federal office. Malia Cohen is our choice for controller, and of course, she's catching a lot of flack right now and a heavy media attack from her opposition. And I guess that can happen when you have a lot of money. But she has served on the Board of Equalization as chairperson of that board. Um, and did a very outstanding job administering the state's payroll system and unclaimed properties, which is important. And so she's there. Next, we have Rob Bonta. Now, Bonta is maybe, he's running for attorney general. And some of us have some concerns. And on one hand, we got to go with him because the alternatives are so much worse. But at the same time, he's really been political on this abortion issue, but he's been dodging on some other issues that involve making some criminal justice decisions. So um, you make your decision. You look at him closely. We're looking at a person as the lesser of the two evils that we have in terms of choices. Next to him, we have Tony Thurman, who is, and this is a nonpartisan position, but he's running for superintendent of public instruction for the state of California. Okay, and he would head the Department of Education and carry out policies by the state Board of Education. And so this is a very important position. When I served on the Board of Education in Washington, D.C., because D.C. is a city state in the Greek concept, um, we were both a city board and a state board of education, okay? Um, and so he is also um, an ex officio member of the governor's board of State Board of Higher Education. So it's an important position. Um, and I guess one of the first African American superintendents of public instruction we had some 50 years ago was a man by the name of Wilson Riles, and he did a very outstanding job. So Mr. Thurman is in the position now, and he is seeking he's seeking his full term, and we want to give thought to what we're doing in terms of our schools. Then beyond that, we have three members of Congress running for reelection. Scott Peters in the 50th congressional district, Sarah Jacobs in the 51st, and Juan Vargas in the 52nd. Now, these three people are important to us for a particular reason. We have control of the House of Representatives because we have a Democratic majority. There's been some speculation that because of the MAGA and the extreme right people who have supported the Trump theory and they've won like 90% of the primaries that they've been in, that those people can get their members of Congress in. And if they get the majority in the House, I think it's 214, if they get the majority in the House, then Nancy Pelosi is out as Speaker. Kevin McCarthy comes in, which would be a disaster, and the president will virtually be shut down in terms of the things that he's trying to do. And so Scott Peters has been doing a yeoman's job. He was an environmental attorney. He served on both the city council and the San Diego Port Commission, and he was chair of the commission. Sarah Jacobs is not one of my favorite people. I don't think that Sarah really cares about the African American community or some other members of her constituency. But we've got to vote for her because right now we need every Democrat. And so she's going to get a de facto pass, even though if we had some options and it was a different day, there's no way I would vote for her. But I'm going to, and some of you will be impressed by her smile and childish look. You know, she's a part of the Jacobs Empire, and she was able to get a couple of nice positions in the Obama administration. And so here we are now. We got her in Congress, and you know, she's still trying to figure out where she is, but she has not been a real friend to our community. She's given a lot of lip service and a smile. As a owner of a newspaper, she's one member of Congress I have yet to have a conversation with beyond when we first met and endorsed her. And so she's getting a ride, and I hope that by the time we do the next one, we don't have to get that ride again. Juan Vargas is, uh, you know, well known. He's come from city council to state assembly to state senator to U.S. Congress, and you know, he has some seniority in the House. His district has been changed around with redistricting, um, and Scott Peters picked up more of our community in the redistricting that took place, and so we need these three people, regardless of how we feel about them individually. We need them, and we need them reelected because we need to be able to count to 214 in the House of Representatives so we can maintain control. Okay, Fiona Marr for treasurer, Ricardo Lara for insurance commissioner. I'm not all that excited about him. Mike Schaefer, he's been around a long time, knows our community. He's seeking to be a member of the Board of Equalization from the fourth district, which is our district, and so I think that he's a good choice in terms of somebody who we know and it's known us for decades. We move on down to some more local races. I'll start on the other end of it. We have Akila Weber running for the 79th. That's the seat that she got elected to in the special election when her mother stepped down to become Secretary of State. And so she's running for her own full term now. We have this Shauna Hazan running for the San Diego Unified School Board. Don't know enough about her except that she's got big campaign going and she's out there. And those who've been following education, you should do some research in terms of her. We have in the area of, I believe it is National City, the Sweetwater School Board. We have Marguerite Brown, Margarita Brown. This is a nonpartisan office. She's a teacher, commissioner, and she's running for the Board of Education. And so you can make your choices. And then we have Blanca Lopez Brown, who's running for the City Council in Lemon Grove. Blanca has been like family for a long time. She grew up in San Diego. Uh, Her family is the one that owns Sawyer Brothers Markets over off of Ocean View. And she and her former husband, they did a grocery store here years ago off of 54th and El Cajon. But she's been on the Lemon Grove School Board for a very long time, very deep roots, lots of recognition and praise. I think she will make an excellent city council member, and Lemon Grove needs a strong city council member at this time. There are three seats up in Lemon Grove, and I'm two seats up and three people running. And I would like very much to see Blanca become one of those two people. And so she's the only one we're really endorsing in that race.
So let me ask you this question: in
Yes.
Lemon Grove, is it like whoever the top two that get the highest votes get put in? It's not like
Yeah.
districts or anything.
Whenever you have a situation like that where you have two seats and more candidates than the seats, the people with the highest vote count, they get in, they get the position.
Okay.
And so that's what's happening there. And we hope that our people will get involved. But even before we go to the propositions, you know, we still got a couple of other things going on in terms of races. And I've added them that they don't appear here, but they'll be on the paper this week. In the city council race for the city of San Diego, since we mentioned city council, we have the pro tem Monica Montgomery Stepp seeking another term, and this is the last term she can have in terms of terming out. She's seeking to be reelected as the city council member from the fourth district. And I believe in the primary she got close to 70% of the vote. But I don't think people should stay home because there are two people on the ballot. And when there are two people on the ballot, the other person can win if the people get relaxed, take it for granted, and don't come out and vote. So she
Mhm.
still needs to get her vote out to make sure that she shows this up. And I think that's a very important move. We also have at the county level, we have Dan McAllister, who has been our treasurer for some time, a really good guy, a good person, done a lot of good work down there. He's seeking a full term. And then we have Jordan Marks, who lives in the Rolando area. And Jordan is an attorney, as is his wife, but he is seeking the position of county assessor. And he has worked with the outgoing assessor as his assistant for at least the past 4 years. He's been visible in the community in terms of the work of the assessor's office. We have on the ballot also the district attorney, Summer Stephan, and the district attorney is running unopposed. And so even though she has no competition, she's on the ballot, and we have listed her, and she's advertising to reach out to the community to say thank you for the support. She's also in a unique situation because a law was just passed that added 2 additional years to both the county sheriff and the district attorney. So instead of her having served 4 years, I think she will end up serving 8 years, 6 to 8 years, because of the time that's being added. And that rule is being changed to kind of make sure that that race coincides with the presidential race that takes place
Mhm.
in the general election, because there are more people that come out and vote during the 4 year presidential election than vote for the midterm election. And so the state changed the sheriff and the district attorney's term to coincide with that, so that going forward, it'll be 4 years and people will be elected along with the presidential elections.
Okay.
Brother Thompson, I don't know if we have any questions at this point because I'm
No.
giving out a lot of information. And maybe before we hit the props, we might let people know if they have questions, they can call us at 858 251 6111, or you may go online to godradio1.com, and we will try to see if you have any questions that we can answer. We don't know everything, but we'll try to be helpful.
Before we go on and with the props and everything else, I just want to take a sidebar to say what is going on in LA. How many re-elections they're going to have, or replacement elections are they going to have now that people are resigning?
Well, that's a situation that we got to discuss even separately, Dr. Thompson, because it runs so deep
Hmm.
in terms of the people on the council resigning. The president's resigned, both from her position, and then she was forced to resign from the council.
Hmm.
The labor leader up there has resigned, and there's another person that's going to be forced out because the folks are camping out at their homes, and they're making it clear that they're not going to go away until they get a resignation. Last week, when the council met, and I was following this even though I was on vacation, and I saw where the people who were involved in the statements that were anti-black and racist, they were not allowed to even take their seats on the council. They had to leave. And I think that's what finally forced the president out after she had resigned the position. She realized the public was saying that's not enough. And a lot of us are concerned about the African American leadership, like the NAACP state leaders, Urban League, NAACP, that all of those people, some members of the community feel that they didn't come out as strongly as they should have in terms of stepping up and speaking out against what took place
Hmm.
and the kind of racist comments that were made. And so this is going to be ongoing, and there's going to be a lot more fallout in terms of repercussions.
And the reason why I brought that up is because a lot of times when we're looking at all the different things that are going on, sometimes we literally bypass that there are other things that are happening that are going to impact not only them in LA, but it's going to impact us also.
Yeah, well, there are impacts for us because there's a question of whether or not, we have some issues down here. We have a couple of supervisors that are up for election, I believe, and we have a situation where I believe the chairman is up,
Hmm.
Nate Fletcher, and he's expected to be a shoe in terms of his race. But we have this kind of event raises some questions in people's minds
Hmm.
in terms of what other things are being said that we might not be aware of.
Yeah.
So we have to pay close attention.
Now, I do want to say that the managing editor just hit me up and said you need to update. So here's the actual updated.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
she did do the update, and she's added Monica Montgomery Stepp, and she's added Jordan Marks, who wasn't there, Dan McAllister, that we didn't have last week. So now we have pictures with those people there. And this is the updated version that you will see tomorrow morning when the paper hits the street as well as online.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Um,
Okay.
and so I'm excited because again, there's just so much happening, and I don't know if we're going to get to the national elections or after this, or which direction we're going to
Well,
head.
we can get to it, but we're not through with this yet
Yeah.
because we've got some issues here. Yesterday on Black Men and Women United, well, let's just go with this piece here before we do the propositions. Let's put up the Dropbox locations, Dr. Thompson. And if anyone is watching, they can see this if they pull it up on Facebook or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing here is site locations, site addresses, and dates in terms of vote center locations. And then to the right of that, we've got some drop boxes there. And we couldn't do the whole county of San Diego. It's a large place, but we did the areas that are closest around to us, like San Diego, Chula Vista, El Cajon, National City, probably Spring Valley. We just tried to hit as many places as we could. You can always go to the county website and you can find out even more information. Let me say that these pages that we put in the paper here, these pages are provided by the Voice and Viewpoint. There's nobody political paying for these. If we charge ourselves for these two pages, they cost us $9,000 a week to print both of these pages, but we're doing it for 4 weeks because we think it's that important to the community. We've had registration cards at the paper encouraging people to come out and vote. And you know that yesterday when we were doing Black Men and Women United, we had a very important point raised that we don't have as many African Americans that have signed up to be poll workers. And the poll workers are paid, so it's not that people are working for free. And so we have an issue because a lot of people who have done it for years, they were older, health wasn't ready, they had to step down and step aside. So that was one of the factors. Then around the country, but we haven't had the issue here, a lot of people have been intimidated by the Magna crowd. They've had their homes and their lives and their families threatened. We saw that down in Georgia, where threats were made against this one worker to the extent that she and her mother were afraid to even go to the grocery store.
Hmm.
And so we are trying to encourage, and I have an editorial this week that's running here and in a majority of the papers around the country, African American publications, suggesting that we need to check up on whether or not there's any shortage of poll workers. They call them precinct workers, and if there are, is there still time to get trained and to sign up?
Hmm.
And see, this is important because what we find is that in some instances, people will say, we need poll workers and just leave it at that.
Hmm.
Well, the people from our community, if they don't see that there's a job attached, unless they can independently wealthy and they can volunteer and they don't see people getting paid, they're not going to pay attention. So on the one hand, the people saying, well, we gave notice, but you didn't give the full picture.
Hmm.
And so you see here that our sites include Lemon Grove, La Mesa, Chula Vista, National City, all of these are areas where we vote. And there should be some people that look like us, manning those precincts, and not just have them there, because all kinds of things can happen if we don't have the right kind of oversight.
So my question to you, Dr. Warren, is what qualifies you to be a poll worker? What resources? What do you need to come in with to be a good poll worker?
Oh, Dr. Thompson. I guess people say sometimes that I've probably done too many things. But many years ago, about 50 years ago in Washington, D.C., when we got home rule, I was one of the people that assisted one of my professors from Howard in drawing the precincts and setting up the voting precincts and mechanism for D.C. to participate in the presidential elections, which it was not able to do beforehand. And so that experience got me very involved with ballots and counting them and hanging chads and pencil marked ballots and papers, and then switching over to the machines that we use, and a whole bunch of stuff. Now, you don't have to have all that experience. I mention all that is because if you go out there and say you want to be involved, they will put you in a training session, and a training session will show you everything that's done in terms of how the ballots are handled and what takes place. Everybody won't necessarily be handling ballots because if you see on television, there are people moving things around. They got to bring the stuff out. They got to box it. They got to pack it. You have monitors from campaigns that are allowed to be in place in terms of watching over how the whole process works. And so there's still time for the training of some people, and it's really going to be like about a 12-hour scenario for those at the polls. The polls open at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they close at 6. In many instances, after the morning rush hour, they're usually kind of dead through the day. There's a ballot box pickup at 2 p.m. That's when all over the country they pick up the morning vote count. And what they're doing is, even while they're waiting to pick that up, that's the time that at Election Central, they start counting the absentee ballots that have come in. Because by the time 8 o'clock comes at night, that's when they release their first count. And that first count is based on the absentee ballots that's come in, and in many instances, the first ballot box that came in at 2 o'clock, to the extent that it was enough to count. And sometimes that box can be big, sometimes the votes can be small. But the real rush is going to come like from 3 o'clock on as people get off from work. And I think in the last big election in San Diego County, we actually had people standing in line for a couple of hours. In the state of Georgia so far, in the first 24 hours of voting, over 100,000 people turned out to vote. 131,000 people turned out to vote in the first 24 hours with all of the restrictions that have been put in place, compared to the last election where in the first 24 hours it was 134,000 people. And so all of those restrictions only pushed the numbers down by about 4,000 or 5,000 because the people are voting and they are angry. And the statistics nationally are showing there's a large number of women voters, and that people are voting in terms of responding to the Supreme Court decision on Roe, and also based on the economy.
And that concerns me because the economy is so bad at this point. There's so many people that almost like say we were better off in Egypt. When we had that other person as president, and I'm concerned that we will lose the House if people become apathetic and not get out to vote.
Well, let's correct something. The economy is not bad off at this point. The economic problems that we have right now, and we're trying to be sabotaged, okay? We are engaged in supporting the war in Ukraine, fighting to support those people. And the whole reason that we're engaged in that battle is that if we don't fight Putin through supporting the Ukraine, then we'll be fighting him over here, because he has demonstrated that he wants to return to the power that Russia once had. At the same time, we got Kim Jong-il, the little crazy North Korean dictator, They're testing all of these missiles that are flying over Japan and demonstrating that he can reach Guam. And yeah, we've got about 50,000 troops on the 38th parallel, which is the demarcation line between North and South Korea that was done following the Korean War. But at the same time, we are not going to stand by and let our troops in South Korea or our bases in Guam or our ally in Japan be threatened by him.
Hmm.
And so that's why people are concerned in terms of the president's posture. But I believe the president and secretary of state, behind the damage that was done to our reputation under Donald Trump and his sucking up to our adversaries, I think we have to have a strong position to let people know that we are serious and that we will stand up and defend. I think what the president did today was so significant. Today he came out not only establishing concern over the oil situation, because let's look at what's taking place. There's a strategic attack going on behind the scenes. Um, Saudi Arabia reduced their oil supply. Well, I think they have amnesia because if it hadn't been for us back in 1995, I think when it was, when Iraq invaded Saudi Arabia, it was the U.S. that came to their defense and defeated that army and liberated them. And what they're doing now is they're trying to play both sides of the fence.
Hmm.
And if they can cut back production and keep the price of oil up, they think that that will help Trump supporters take the House and the Senate.
Hmm.
Now, let us not forget that Jared Kushner has got all kinds of billion-dollar deals going with the Saudis right now. And one of the things that we can do with them is, we can cancel those agreements on those airplane parts and
Hmm.
equipment. We can cancel that stuff. And so I think it was important that the president let the nation know what's going on. They are trying to drive our prices up by reducing their quantity. The president has invaded our strategic oil reserves, but I believe it is important that not only did he go into the reserves and we are still above the halfway point, but he made an important political statement. He let people know that America is an oil producer. We are exporting oil in terms of how much we are producing. And he let people know that not only are we exporting oil, but we're producing about 1 million barrels a day. Now, there's 15 million barrels more being ready to be released from the strategic reserves, but he also came after the 6 oil companies, letting them know, y'all got rich, you pimped us on the first cycle. We don't expect to see that happen again. He didn't abandon the environmental movement, and he made a very strategic offer to them. The offer that he made was that um, if you produce oil as we need to, and we can get the price back down, we will buy the oil that you are producing so you don't have to worry about a glut on the market. We will buy that oil at about $70 a barrel and replenish the oil preserves.
Hmm.
He let people know that right now the oil preserves, the oil we've been buying has been at $90 a barrel,
Hmm.
and we've seen it get up to 100 and something a barrel. So that's a good deal for the oil companies, and it shows the American people going through December that those 15 million additional barrels that we're putting out there, because we've been putting out 180 million barrels, that was a commitment made back in June going through the end of the year, that we're going to be viable and able to meet anything that comes up. And so this is consistent with what he's been saying, and hopefully this will be enough for Americans who go to the pump to not just have a knee-jerk reaction at the pump, because the price should be down. Yeah, it's come down 27 cents across the country in
Hmm.
the past week, but we're still paying $2 to $3 more in California than the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so that's the problem over here. That no matter the gas prices in California are higher than they are in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because I've looked at the prices in Hawaii and driven around the stations there. It's higher than in Canada
Well,
for some of the places up there.
Dr.
So
Warren,
it's greed.
I just want to say that my feelings was hurt when I filled up this week and it said $114. Now that used to be a Tahoe
Is that
filling.
all you put?
Yeah. Well,
114?
that remember when the Tahoe you could fill it up for under 100.
Well,
But now I got a sedan, and it was 114.
well, I filled up my Navigator today, and it cost me 150.
See what I mean?
Yeah, and
So
because I had to use high test, and so, but the bottom line is everybody can't afford to do that, and so it's having a ripple because, like the president pointed out, if you got to put more money in the tank, then the money's got to go down someplace else. Is it food? Is it rent? Is it medicine? Certainly not eating out when you got to spend that kind of money just to be able to drive, and people
exactly.
are limiting their mobility. And so, but all of this is connected, folks, to whether or not we vote in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the Trumpers and the Republican Party, they have not put forth one meaningful program for anything other than just trying to shoot down what's being done. Remember, Trump knew we had the pandemic and didn't do anything about it. Biden did something about the pandemic. The shots, the drugs, everything that's been done, making it available, whether you took it or not. The important thing is that it was nationally made available and that he has still been functioning as president to address our needs while the other people are over there just kind of playing games.
Yeah. And so I think that it's very important that we pay attention that there are a lot of people that is just, um, that is blowing past, no matter what's said. I see the campaign with Herschel Walker. Now, Herschel Walker's son then came out and said what his thoughts were about his father. The lady has come on record telling her story, and yet and still people are like saying,
Well, you know what? On the Herschel Walker, we don't even have to go through all of that. First of all, the man is a blundering idiot, okay? And he's an insult to the African American race, to the black race, because the only reason he's being supported is that conservative white people have said this is our new step in Fletcher. Only thing he's not doing is scratching like Fletcher in the old movies. Okay, this is the new step in Fletcher, and he's going to do what the white folks say. So we don't need, he just will be white in blackface. We don't need that. And here's Warnock, who's been doing a yeoman's job in Georgia. And here's Georgia with a track record of having elected a Jew and an African American to the Senate. Don't you know that's giving the racists all kinds of trauma down there? And they going through all kind of cold turkey situations. And so we got Stacey running for governor. And, in Georgia, it's a funny place because there are enclaves of black people, but there's still the outer areas can be just as racist as the Klan members still wearing their sheets. And so we need to just push hard, get people to vote, and we can keep these seats. We got a black woman running for the Senate in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. We got Val Dennings running for the Senate in Georgia. We could get these people elected. Okay, we got a sister running for governor, I believe it is in Utah. And we got more black women running for office than ever before. Mm-hmm. And we need to get out and vote and support them and keep these seats that we have and put these people out, because if this Trump slate gets involved, whether it be Secretary of State in charge of elections, they have already made it clear they will throw out ballots, they will fabricate certification, they will fire people, they will, by any means necessary, with no ethics, no standards, and no appreciation for the oaths of office that are taken, they would do whatever they can to try to make America white again.
Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that I'm, very concerned about. I think that when we made the transition, we started to try to heal America again and try to bring us together. But there's been so many things that are still happening and that have not seemed to be addressed, and it's frustrating. I look at the multiple deaths that we've seen through the trauma of gun violence. I see more and more mass shootings, and we still are not addressing the issue. And the question comes in, how do we get elected officials to address the issues? And I really feel that if we lose the House and the Republicans are in charge, then that's a dead issue. It's mute.
Well,
and we'll
yes.
continue to go forward.
And that's important, Dr. Thompson. And let's take it a step further, okay? We don't need to lose these governorships, okay? We need Beto O'Rourke to get elected in Texas as the governor of Texas and get rid of that crazy governor there. We need to get rid of DeSantis in Florida. in
Yeah.
terms of it. We need to get rid of Marco Rubio being in the Senate in Florida. Okay, we need and see, Florida is a funny state. The northern part of Florida, the northwest corner of Florida, is white, conservative, racist. Florida's strongest voting bloc is in the south, Broward County,
Hmm.
Miami, all down in that area where the blacks are voting and they turn out in large numbers. They have got to turn out there. They got to turn out in South Central. And South Central Florida is still racist. I mean, I'll show you how racist South Central is. We own a newspaper in 3 counties in South Central Florida for 3 years. They had a situation where they built a new elementary school and they wanted to name the school. And so they had two names that had been put up for the elementary school. One was Martin Luther King Elementary School, and the other was Cracker Trail Elementary School, because the whole cracker concept comes out of the state of Florida because it's cattle country as well as orange country, and they use the whip, and they called them crackers because they could crack the whip. So you know who the school ended up being named Cracker Trail Elementary School, and not Martin Luther King. And so we got we just have to get informed, folks. We got an opportunity now. We have something else that took place today, folks, and you got to be paying attention to this. They have gone so far, and I think it was in Augusta, Tampa. It was down in Tampa. They have started going out in Florida was one of the states that passed a law that ex-felons could vote again once they had served their time and got out of prison. They did this some years ago.
Hmm.
Well, guess what? This racist Republican legislature came along and passed a law that says you can vote again, but you have to pay a tax in order to be able to vote if you are ex-felon. Well, that's the equivalent to reinstituting the poll taxes that we had back before we got the Voting Rights Act and the
Hmm.
Civil Rights Act passed. And so, what we saw today in places like Tampa, we saw the sheriff's department going out, rounding up some older black women and men and putting them in handcuffs and saying that you voted last time and you are guilty of voter fraud because you didn't pay the tax that was imposed before you went to vote. Now, they already passed a law down there that you can't hand water or sandwich to anybody that's online waiting to vote when they have reduced the outlets and the boxes without being charged with a felony.
Well, that really disturbed me when I saw people being arrested in Florida, especially for voting, and they had some prime things. Why was I allowed to vote if I wasn't allowed to vote?
Well, and it was racially motivated because at the same time, they had some white people who were in the same category as felons, ex felons. They tracked them because they voted without paying the tax, and they were given community service and probation.
Hmm.
But the black folks were locked up.
Yeah, and that, again, that's the governor. The governor has this whole thing. If they weren't doing wrong, they wouldn't have to go back to jail for 5 years. And I think that that's really sad because there are some people that now have a fear factor of, wait a minute, let me make sure if I vote, I won't then get arrested. So I won't even deal with it. I just won't vote at all.
Well, remember 3 years ago, there was a black woman that was accused of voter fraud, and she was put back in jail, and she was given 3 to 5 years because she had voted and didn't know that she had to go through this whole process to be able to cast a vote.
Hmm.
And so everything, the voter suppression, remember over 23 states passed voter suppression laws. The whole idea is to reduce it. Let us not forget the postmaster pulled those boxes, if you will. Let's not forget those. Let's not forget that they stopped the Sunday voting after church, and they shut down the polls, and they reduced it. In some places in Texas, they had like 1 or 2 polls, and people have to drive 50 to 100 200 miles. Same thing in some places in Michigan.
Hmm.
So all of this is a conspiracy, and is really aimed at people of color and people who support people of color, so that this extreme conservative white element
Hmm.
can be in control.
Wow. Well, with that being said, I want to take a quick commercial break and then come right back and let's get back into the propositions
We will do that.
right here on GODRadio1.com. Breaking news. Today, California lawmakers are outlawing open shop state-approved apprenticeship programs like the Black Contractors Association, with union-only project labor agreements that discriminate against all non-union apprenticeship programs and only give 10% of construction contracts to so-called minorities. This is how politicians give kickbacks to the unions for funding their election campaigns. Union workers or non-union workers are one family. We are all master builders and a part of the construction industry. As one who benefits from the Black Contractors Apprenticeship Program, we must vote no on Measure D. Project labor agreements will divide and destroy the building industry family. Vote no on Measure D.
The San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper is San Diego's oldest and largest African American publication. We bring you news for and about our community. Your stories matter to us. Thank you for allowing us to serve you for nearly 6 decades. Your support enables us to continue to forge ahead, informing you with news tailored to your needs. In addition to subscribing to our weekly publication, consider using Voice and Viewpoint to promote your business and events. Call us at 619-266-2233 or send an email to ads@sdvoice.info for details on how to get started. If you have advertising needs, contact us. Our prices are both fair and reasonable. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Voice and Viewpoint or visit our website at www.sdvoice.info. Remember, a people without a voice cannot be heard.
Well, we're back here from the voice. I was going to say, from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren, and we're talking politics. We're talking election. We're talking about get out to vote. So let's go ahead and finish this up. I'm gonna zoom in on the propositions. You know, we just heard one on Proposition D, but our Measure D. But let's go ahead and do the props and then the measures.
Well, let's start with the state propositions, okay? Proposition 1 is a constitutional amendment, right to reproduction freedom. And that whole idea is that we are making it a part of the Constitution that women have this right, and this is to override the Roe v. The Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade. And so that makes a big difference right there, that we need to vote yes on one. Now,
Okay.
proposition.
So I do want to say, can I say this?
Yes.
I'm really struggling with this whole, Roe being overturned and everything else of that nature, because how can you control what women do, and do we then set women up to lose their life because they find alternatives?
Well, it even gets deeper than that, Dr. Thompson, because it opened a can of worms for instance, in the 60s, there was a Supreme Court decision called Griswold v. Connecticut, and it was all about the privacy of the bedroom and whether or not the government had a protected interest in the idea of whether people use contraceptives in the bedroom. And so the idea was, no, the government does not have a compelling interest in what happens in a bedroom between individual people. Now, there have been some efforts to overturn all of that over the years, and I have to go to them in another time because the clock doesn't allow.
Okay.
But the important thing is that we need to vote yes on Prop 1
Okay.
in terms of supporting that. And then on Prop 26, which is a whole part of this whole thing about the gaming, Props 26 and 27. I suggest that we vote no on both of them. We don't have any vested interest in them. They serve no purpose for us. And so those, when we in doubt, vote no. Don't not vote. In doubt, vote no. Because we don't want to help pass something by not voting and then letting somebody else make up for our no vote, and we get it because we didn't know. Okay? And so even though you might see ads in the Voice and Viewpoint for Prop 1 or 26 or 27, you need to understand that we allow people to buy ads and that their ads don't have to be consistent with our position. Okay?
So, and I'm just going to question, but it's legal that if you open up your publications for ads, you can't block people.
No, you have to give it. And so that's why we have this situation across the board. Now, on Prop 28, additional funding for arts and music education, I think that that's one of those closet things that's not what it's supposed to be. Because I think that in spite of the title, that by the time they finish messing with the money, very little will come, and it's not worth it in terms of letting additional tax dollars come at us that we're going to get such a small benefit from.
Hmm.
The real proposition that's got an issue here, that's the tearjerker, is Prop 29. Now, Prop 29 affects dialysis clinics, and it would require that a licensed medical profession be on duty at each clinic, either as a doctor or a nurse physician. Um, um, yeah, a nurse practitioner physician. And it would regulate how those facilities operate, whether or not they can close, who they can deny service to, how much money they can charge. And so what we have now is a campaign. You're seeing all of these poor people coming on television telling you that if this passed, they're going to die, they need their dialysis, and you're going to kill them. Well, the amount of money being spent to fight Proposition 29, they could have put that money into putting all of the required elements into the places, because people who are on dialysis are certainly going to be better off if they have a doctor on duty or a licensed professional that's monitoring what's taking place. Right now, you just is a crapshoot. You can just go in there and anything can happen. On Proposition 30, which talks about providing funds for pollution and air and wildfires, and that's a sleeper, okay? Because the environmentalists want you to think that you benefit, but less than 20% of that money is going to go to the environmentalists. And I believe there's one more proposition, Dr. Thompson, Proposition 31.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember what 31 is. And maybe somebody will call and remind me. I know I have a position on it, but I can't remember it, and I haven't added it. While we're thinking about Proposition 31 with the clock moving, and locally in the city of San Diego, we have four elements on the ballot. We have propositions, measures A, B, C, and D. Okay, now so far I have completed my look at Measure C relating to the coastal zone height limits for Midway, and I'm saying no to that. And then Measure D, which deals with the project labor agreements, and a lot of money is being spent on this. And I believe people like Brother Hamid with BCA and others understand that this is not all that it's supposed to be. And I believe that in doubt, we should support those among us who find harm coming out of legislation as opposed to just letting stuff ride. So we need to be prepared to take positions. If you're not sure about measures A and B, vote no on them. But by all means, don't leave your ballot empty. And if you're not sure whether or not you are registered, you can vote what they call a provisional ballot. You can wait till election day and do it, or you can go out to the register of voters between 8 and 5 and park and go inside. You can tell them where you live. You question if you've been dropped or you didn't get a ballot, and they will let you vote, and they'll seal your ballot, and then it'll be counted later when they go back through all of the absentee ballots that are mailed in. And so every vote is important, all right? There's no such thing as an unimportant vote. And don't let nobody tell you, because, it can be decided on one vote. One vote can make the difference. Years ago in Virginia, I believe it was Maryland, Virginia, they had a tie situation, and they ended up putting 2 slips of paper in 2 film containers and letting somebody draw on like a crapshoot. Government should not hinge on how the dice fall.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get involved, okay? So
Okay.
I don't know if we had any questions. We got
No.
through a lot of this. Dr. Thompson, you're putting this online so people
Yeah.
can come back and hear this and they can go through it. You can pull it up on the app in terms of it, the Voice of Viewpoint app. If you don't have it, you can go to Google and Apple and download it. If you got a ballot mailed to you, you should have it by now, and you should be sitting down to fill it out. You can take the paper and fill it out. If in doubt, you vote no. and
And
put it in the mail, and you can track it being mailed.
they said on Prop 29 again, yes or no?
Prop 29, I'm saying yes,
Okay. All right.
because I believe we need it, and a lot of people disagree. I
Okay.
can't remember 31. Proposition 31 is important,
But
and
we'll be back next week to discuss it.
yeah, and we'll come back because we're gonna keep on this because if you're in doubt, we want you voting, and it might be late on the one hand in terms of registration, but you can still vote if in doubt. You can still vote the provisional, and they can process that later. Don't miss out. Okay, I want to thank you all for listening. Boy, it's been an exhaustive discussion, but we're gonna keep this up because we want everybody to get out there and make every vote count.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in from the desk of the editor. We will be back next week with more great information. We want you to share the feed, share with other people to see, to listen to, and also get your questions ready for next week. Want you to tap in, and we're going to continue to do this. Looking great. We're in the final quarter of the year. And so we got some really exciting things going to happen very, very soon.